I love the energy of this time of year. Even though we're making it up, right? I mean, every day is a new day. We just look at the calendar and like, yay, a whole new year, but we're making that up too, right? But we have this group agreement that, it's the beginning of something new, so, let's do it differently. And so I love the energy of January. Fresh starts, fresh beginnings, new things. And this month's theme is getting grounded, so it supports that idea, right? Back to basics. We're gonna go right back to the beginning and just discover new stuff for ourselves. And so far in this month of getting grounded, we talked about Peace Be Unto Thee, which was the first 4 sections of the introduction of all that's the way it works and all that stuff. And then last week was In the Beginning God, about the basic philosophy of the science of mind. And so today we're discussing the nature of being. And that is the nature of our being, the human being. Since we are created in the image and after the likeness of the principle that created us, we're made of the same stuff of the universe because there was nothing else to make anything out of except itself. It seems logical that we would contain the same elements of the Creator and create our lives much the same way the Creator created everything. It's the way it works, right? That we learned in the introduction. That is the way it works. So that same triune nature of spirit, soul, and body as the divine creative process, the principle uses to create, we align with also. And we co-create our lives aligning with that same energy. And Ernest Holmes said this. He said, metaphysics begins where physics leaves off. Everything is movement. Everything we take hold of and analyze, all things in the physical world of form are in a certain rate of vibration and are an effect. This is the result of the infinite thinker thinking mathematically. And that's really, simply stated, thoughts produce things. That's what that means. And this practical philosophy of ours states that anything that mind thinks, mind can unthink. That we are given domain over our own thoughts. And we can change the conditions around us by aligning with a power and a presence we didn't create, we just recognized. So we're dealing with this power, this principle, which in itself is limitless. It is infinite, knowing no difficult and easy, no big and small. Our demonstrations are solely limited by our belief and embodiment of it. That makes sense? This thing is just infinite in its scope and nature, and we get to use as much of it as we can believe, embody, and demonstrate. And Ernest Holmes said this. He said, saying the word peace will not produce peace unless in back of the word is the realization and the meaning of peace. Right? Stand in your garage all day and say the word car. You're not going to become one. It is we who must grow in our belief, in our consciousness, in order to demonstrate, in order to experience a greater condition in our lives. And he goes on, Ernest Holmes goes on to say, the sum total of all erroneous human belief binds until the individual mentally lifts himself above the law of averages into a higher law of spiritual individualization. And Emma Curtis Hopkins said that for a long time, and she was his teacher, so I'm assuming he got that from her, right? That she said we must specialize ourselves out of human race consciousness. We must specialize ourselves out of the human race consciousness in order to manifest something different. If we take our images, our mental images and our thoughts only from our previous experiences, then you can see how we can only keep experiencing what we've experienced. That's why we call it new thought, right? In order to experience something different, you can't go back into your mind to what you've experienced before, because then that's all you'll keep out picturing. New thought means to have a new thought, and then you change the trajectory of your life, and you experience the outpicturing of that new thought. Wasn't it Carolyn Mace that said, we call this movement New Thought, but when was the last time you had one? Right? It's about our practice. That's what we need to do. And so we will continue to outpicture the same thing when we continue to think the same thing. The more we discuss bondage, the more we are bound. And Ernest Holmes said this. He said, and the more that the world prepares for war, the more certain it is that there will be war. People who spend all their time talking about their unhappiness become more unhappy. We are bound because we are first free. The power which binds us is the only thing in the universe which can free us. Man already has, I would say human. I like human. You know, he always spoke in the masculine gender, and that was only because of the time period in which he wrote, right? So we all sort of reinterpret it in our minds. Anyway, the human already has within himself or herself the key to freedom, but we must come to realize our relation to the whole. The relationship is one of complete unity. There's everything in it. So we can manifest bondage as easily as we can manifest freedom. Everything in the universe has already been given, and we are free to discover our own divine nature, and that's the most important part. We are free and left alone to discover our own divine nature. God could not program us to know the truth, or else we would be automatons, right? We'd be little God robots. If we weren't allowed to discover this on our own, that's what free will is. Ernest Holmes said, electricity was around in Jesus' day, but nobody was able to use it then. It took humanity to discover it and to discover its uses and to harness it to be able to use it. It's always existed. It's a power and presence in the universe that has always existed, but we had to evolve to the point where we could discover it and use it to our advantage. We must get the consciousness of understanding our power or our alignment with this power. Our ability to use a power has always been. So our basic nature is one of expansiveness. It is a journey of greater awareness, isn't it? This is why we're here, to have a greater self-expression, greater self-actualization, to align more with the spiritual truth of who we are, right? To grow, to expand, to become that which Spirit knows us to be. We are here to bring heaven to earth and to grow as the spiritual beings we are into full self-realization. We don't need to go anywhere to get anything. We are already whole. We are already whole. We must release the imprisoned splendor that we are. Our authentic self. Our authentic self. We have to let it out. And we miss that mark always by judging by appearances. We always miss the mark by judging by appearances. We get hypnotized by the world of illusions, by conditions, by temporary conditions. And we believe them to be the truth that binds us. But they're not the truth. They're effects. They're temporary conditions. The infinite is forever becoming, right? Life is forever seeking to know of itself in form. So it is always changing, it's always growing, it's always expressing. We are that. We are that. And so is everything else in the manifest universe. There is a unitary whole to everything. And we cannot separate life from living or spirit from matter. It is one and the same. And Ernest Holmes said, divine principle is divine creation. That is what it does. I don't think it can stop doing that. That's just what it does. The divine creates. And Ernest Holmes used the analogy, didn't he, of the gardener. He always went back to that analogy. Spirit, soul, body, seed, soil, plant. You've read that, right? If you've ever been to foundations class, we discussed it, at length. The seed is the thought. Just the thought of God and the thought of us, right? The seed is the thought. The soil is that subjective, intelligence of mind. And the body is the resulting manifestation, the plant, right? And he used that frequently to describe the divine creative process. But now, for instance, if a gardener is planting tomato seeds, but he thinks he's planting zucchini, well, he can believe it all he wants. He could not doubt it. But what's going to sprout? Well, he's going to get tomato plants. Doesn't really matter what he believes, right? If he's planting tomato seeds, thinking it's something else, he's still going to get tomatoes. He's not going to get zucchini just because he thinks, just because he wishes zucchini. He mistakenly believes he's planting zucchini. He's still going to get tomato plants because that's what he's putting into the soil. And that's the way it is with us. That's the way it is with us. Our conscious thoughts, beliefs backed by experiences, and we consciously think we're planting what we want, but our subconscious mind may be limiting the expression of what is possible for us because of our false beliefs. Right? So we think we're planting one thing, but we're really planting something else, and then it sprouts, and we go, what the hell is that? I didn't plant that. Oh, but yes, we did. Oh, but yes, we did. We're thinking one thing, but we're planting another. And what do we do with that? What do we do with that? How do we get to know what we don't know? How do we get to know what's in that subconscious that we keep planting over and over again, but we don't know? We don't know what we don't know. I didn't know it either. That's why I was doing this talk. And I was researching and I was studying and I was reading different things, and I came across this, which I found fascinating. Mike Bundrent is a certified NLP, neuro-linguistic programmer, facilitator. And he's also a trainer and a life coach instructor, and he's co-founded a school for both. And he wrote about limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them. And he said this, I love this, he said, beliefs are like road signs that point you in a direction. And the right direction is always supported by the belief. But if the belief is life-affirming and positive, yay, we got everything we need, right? If we have a belief that is true for us, love and joy and, oh, that's not up there, love and joy and peace and power, all of those qualities of God, then our road signs are pointing us to this genuine expression of spirit as us. We're good to go and we're heading in the right direction. If the belief is life-affirming. But what if the belief is a false belief? What if it is a false belief within us, right? Mr. Bundrent goes on to say this: we have two kinds of limiting beliefs, destination beliefs and directive beliefs. And destination beliefs are conclusions. And directive beliefs are the road signs that guide us there. Right? So this is your little briefcase, right? This is the idea that you have this false belief under there, and then everything that you see and everyone you know and every experience you have is reinforcing that belief. This is how you collect evidence, right? Throughout your life. See, this proves what I believe to be true about myself, For example, right, if your belief is I don't fit in, then the signs that I see out there in life will reinforce that. It's not anything that's happening out there. It's what's happening in here. And so if we're driven by the false belief, then the evidence, the directive signs we see will reinforce that false belief, right? I have a false belief, I don't fit in. I'm an outsider. Nobody likes me. Now, I go to work in the morning and I go kind of attempt to talk to my coworker as I'm walking by, but I see, oh, he's busy. He doesn't have time for me. I'll just go on and go about my business, right? Don't reach out, don't turn. Reinforces the idea, nobody wants to talk to me, right? It is the outpicturing of a false belief that I hold to be true about myself. And Ernest Holmes said this, he said, so we suffer, Not because suffering is imposed upon us, but because we're ignorant of our true nature. So again, how do we get to know what we don't know? Because there it is, right? It's all in your subconscious. All those limiting beliefs, Ernest Holmes said, all of human race consciousness is there. Every thought anybody ever thought throughout humanity is there. That's how people channel people, right? You know that. Everything in that human race conscious, the middle part of the teaching symbol, it's not up there. The middle part of the teaching symbol, is that the soul part, that human race consciousness. Everything is in there. You want to channel Cleopatra, well, it's there. Every thought she ever had was there. Go ahead, channel her, and you too can sell books. Anyway, what that is all truth and all limiting beliefs as well, right? Everything is there. And if that's what we're believing to be true about ourselves, we're going to limit the outpicturing, right? But how do we know what we're believing in the subconscious? Again, because those false beliefs are so strong as destination beliefs, and our directive beliefs point us to that conclusion, we get that reinforcement that, must be true for us. And sometimes we will pick, won't we? We'll pick the familiar misery over the unfamiliar happiness because it's familiar, right? It's a familiar destination for us. We've been doing it over and over and over and over our whole lives. It's a familiar destination, even if it's painful, we know it. So again, the way out of this. The way out of this, God doesn't have these problems. There is only the truth, and the truth will set you free. Gloria Steinem said, but first it'll piss us off, right? It's true. So what happens is we have to question the belief. We have to question the destination of belief, right? Because that will change the directive markers. It'll change the directive road signs. We have to question the destination belief. We must shine the light of consciousness on those hidden false beliefs, the false beliefs that are driving the whole program, right? The I'm not good enough one, or the I'm lonely one, or the I'm not lovable one, or whatever that is. We have to question it. The false directive signs keep pointing us to the false destination to prove we're right. That's why we do it. It proves that we're right. See, I knew it all along. Nobody loves me. I'm going to go eat worms. We get to prove it to ourselves. We prove the false belief because we believe the false belief to begin with, so we have to prove it to ourselves, or else we'd think we were mad. So we have to wrap our minds around the idea that there may be some part of us that thinks arriving at the familiar destination is a good thing. We have to wrap our minds around that idea. Because what? Because if we don't, then we're stuck with, I'm a miserable person. Right? Or I'm a lonely person, or I'm an unlovable person, when that's what the false belief is telling us. But what we can wrap our minds around is the idea of, there may be a part of me that believes I'm unlovable. That's a whole different ballgame, isn't it? There might be some part of me that insists I'm lonely. Because otherwise, we keep manifesting what we don't want. We keep following those directive signs down to the false conclusion, destination. Aha, I've proven it to myself again. I'm lousy. So we have to question the belief. We're whole, perfect, and complete, right? Ernest Holmes said, we're whole, perfect, and complete. We just don't believe it sometimes. We lose sight of it sometimes. We're born into conditions sometimes that will say less than, that will give us those false beliefs. And then we take those false beliefs and run with them and prove them to ourselves over and over and over again. We keep manifesting the thing we don't want. Ernest Holmes said this: any negativity of thought we are aware of arising from such sources may be changed by consciously identifying ourselves with and maintaining only good and positive ideas. Such new identification thus becomes the law unto our own life. Change your thinking, change your life. We've heard that before. And in Mr. Bundrant's writing, he tells us how to do that. And that we are a practical philosophy. It's not good enough to sit around and say, hey, we're doing it wrong, let's do it right, without being given some sort of helpful, handy hints. And here's what he said. He said, here are 3 steps to take. At the start of the day, acknowledge there is a part of us that is actively seeking the familiar, miserable destination that we've been arriving at for so many years. Acknowledge it, right? You know that whole idea of what you resist persists? And the other part of that is, and what you accept you can transform. So that's the first part of this. Accept there may be some part of us that is actively seeking the miserable, familiar conclusion that we have arrived at so many times, right? And just hold it there. Just understand it might exist. It's not the truth of who you are. It's a false idea that a part of you holds. And then he said, number 2, determine to watch for the directive beliefs that will attempt to guide you there, to that destination. Awaken to those little road signs that are going to be pointing you toward that false destination. Awaken to them, listen to them, hear them when you come across them. And then the third thing, when we run into a directive belief sign, acknowledge it and challenge it. Right? Acknowledge it and challenge it. We acknowledge it by being the observer in our own life, don't we? You know, when we're all immersed in our thoughts, we can't get out of them. When we are the observer of our thoughts, we can absolutely see them for what they are. We practice being in the moment. We practice being fully present to our choices. We notice when we are tempted to go down that unpleasant but so familiar pathway. We challenge it by questioning it, right? As soon as that directive sign comes up that says, yeah, you shouldn't bother him, like going back to my friend and my coworker, right? Yeah, you shouldn't bother him. Don't go near him. He doesn't want to talk to you. You're not, Question it. Question it. Is it true? Is it true for the me I am today? Is it true for the me I am becoming? And if not, what do I want to replace it with? And that's how we start changing those directive signs. It is our nature to grow. It is our nature to evolve beyond our self-imposed limitations. It is our nature, our divine nature, to be the wholeness and the fullness and the joy and the love and the wisdom that Spirit is expressing through us. It is our nature to be fully self-actualized in this life and be everything that Spirit knows we are. Ernest Holmes said this: each one of us today is the result of the use we have made of the law, either consciously or unconsciously. And as soon as we realize that, we shall see that what we are now, or what we have now experienced, is the result of what we have thought. And the answer to what we shall be is contained in what we are now thinking. For we can change our thinking. Everything begins with the thought. Everything begins with the seed. What are you planting? What are you planting? Plant something good. Plant the truth. Plant love. plant bliss, plant joy, plant wisdom, plant abundance. Plant all of the qualities of God. And that's what you experience this year. Thank you so much. Thank you.